So the Search Institute, and I'd encourage you to go to their website. Really great resources. The Search Institute talks about the 40 developmental assets of young people, and they talk about external assets, and they also talk about internal assets. And so I'd like to just spend a little bit of time talking about these internal assets. So these are the things that as educators, as teachers, as community members, we can do to help parents to engage their kids in internalizing the positive things about themselves. And so in this particular section, the Search Institute suggests that there are four kind of modalities that we should encourage in our young people. And one is a commitment to learning. Now, the interesting thing about a commitment to learning is that a commitment to learning only happens through example. And so I can be committed to something, but I won't be authentic unless it's being demonstrated through my particular actions. And so what that means is that as a parent, if education is important to me, then I must demonstrate that value of education. Meaning, making sure that young people are going to school and participating in school, that I as a parent also participate and engage in school, and that I participate in some level of learning on my own, whether that's formally in a class or reading books, that I demonstrate the power and the importance of education. That does not necessarily have to be a formal education, but it must be to demonstrate that for my family, for my child. I must demonstrate through my actions this commitment to education. And so what that means is that I'm engaged in school, that I value my child doing their homework, that I either help them myself or I find someone who can help them. One of the most powerful things that my parents did was they understood that there was only so far that they themselves could take me. So they made sure that I was surrounded by adults who could take me farther than the skills that they had as individuals. I thank God that my parents were able to see that their ability to take me places were limited by their personal exposure to things. And so that's one thing that we must encourage our parents to do, give them resources that help them to do that. And then bonding with the school, that one of the things that we have to help our parents understand is that this educating of their students is a process that we both must be engaged in. It is just not the school that teaches, but it is actually the school who is a facilitator of what is happening at home. And so we must encourage our parents to create a mission statement for their family, for their child. What kind of child would you like for us to produce as a school as we're working with you? And then we also have to work with young people to build up their resiliency to adversity. And so what that means is that we have to help them with delayed gratification, that we're not necessarily always giving them what they want when they want it, but that some of these things need to be delayed because this is a life lesson that will actually pay and reap benefits in the future. And so slowing young people down, it's very difficult in this microwave society to slow people down, to say you won't always get the benefit of what you're doing right now, but you will get the benefit if you keep persisting. One of the things that I think has been very problematic with how we talk to young people, or how we try to motivate young people, is that we tell them this lie that you can be anything that you want to be, when in fact they can only be what they're willing to work for. So I may want to be an NFL player, but if I'm not willing to do a push-up, I may not make that goal. I may not be an NFL player if I can't or won't do push-ups. So those are the things that we have to keep in mind when we start talking about this commitment to learning. There's that achievement is motivation. That school engagement is an important part of that. That working from home, that doing homework, working with the student outside the classroom is extremely important. That we need to build rapport with the school, and that we need to help students get resiliency. The next asset in this internalizing of these assets is positive values. Now, what do we mean by positive values? What we mean is that kids have to have an internal building of self-esteem that is well developed enough that they can actually produce from themselves the kinds of behaviors that will allow society to engage them, and that they may be able to engage in society. So a sense of caring, not just about yourself, but being able to care about someone else. Developing empathy and social justice, that I actually have, that I'm not so callous that I am YOLO, you only live once, right? That we actually develop a character that says, not only do I feel for someone else, I can actually do for someone else without actually expecting to get a benefit myself. That folks must develop integrity, that I will do these things not because I'm being paid to, but because I said I will do them. That we have to build this concept of honesty for our young people, that they have to recognize that my word is my bond, and that they have to develop responsibility, that I'm a person who's been given charge over certain kinds of resources, whether it be my time, whether it be money, whether it be books, but I have to be the person who is a good steward, take responsibility, be a good steward over these resources. And lastly is this concept of restraint. Meaning that I have the ability to do certain things, but I have the self-discipline and control to not do them. And so when we start talking about these positive values, these are the ones that help us to build young people who can actually engage the world and not be crushed by it. Next is our social aspects, right? So planning and decision making, our leadership development, interpersonal communication, being able to work with people who come from different backgrounds, having some cultural competence, right? So knowing that my way of living may not necessarily be the only way of living, that there may be other people who have different ways of living, being, and doing, and that we have some resilience and resistance skills, that there are certain things that I won't do because I don't have to, and that I have some practical conflict resolution skills, that I am able to negotiate conflict in such a way. Conflict is a natural part of life. We will always be in conflict when we have ideas or ideals that are greater than our current existence or capacity. And so that gap creates the opportunity for conflict. And so what we have to have young people do is figure out how to negotiate conflict in such a way that they maintain their identity while still achieving their goals. And so those things become extremely important. So looking at how do we plan, how do we organize our time, how do we make decisions, how are we culturally competent, how do we have these resilient skills, and then how do we proactively solve conflict or manage conflict in such a way that it keeps us intact and also allows us to reach our goals. And then we have to have personal identity. We have to understand that I'm a person of power. I have the ability to do something. I was born for a purpose, either a purpose that I decide or a purpose that is revealed to me. And one of the things we have to encourage our parents is to decide the purpose of their children, to tell their children what their purpose is, because if not, the children don't have anything to bounce off of, right? So helping parents to come up with these particular statements about declaring who their kids are, so the kids have a place to start. Not necessarily saying that that is exactly what their kids are going to be or how they're going to exist. However, it gives them a starting place to say, okay, I want to be what Dad says, or I don't want to be what Dad says, but I do want to do something different and something productive. The next is that they have good self-esteem, that they have an adequately balanced image of who they are and what they're able to do. Next is that they have a sense of purpose, that they know that there's something that they can do and that they're going to do that. And that they can see themselves positive in the future, that their future seems bright because they understand that their purpose and their power and their self-esteem is not just wasted on today. Another thing that's very problematic is this whole idea that you only live once, right? That your limited time on this ethereal plane must be spent now. Do it now because there is no more time. Well, one of the things that once we get young people to internalize these particular assets, they'll start to recognize that, my teen years are the shortest time in my life. However, they could be the most impactful time of my life. And so when we're working with our families, when we're working with young people, we have to put that childhood in perspective of the rest of your life. Otherwise, it can seem so daunting that I might not necessarily feel or see a tomorrow. And so with the Search Institute and these internalized assets, we find some tools that we can help families develop their mission statement for their families, that they can create goals and objectives for their own students, for their own children and their family. And we start a process where we say, this is a language that we can use to help develop and close that educational gap. And it is my belief that along with our bias, our prejudice, and our discriminatory practices, that those things create the opportunities for those gaps. But to close those gaps, we can eliminate that bias, that prejudice, and that discrimination by developing these internal assets. That this isn't just something that teachers need to be working on, but that teachers need to engage families in closing this gap. And if kids feel better about themselves, it is my belief that they will start acting better and demonstrating how beautiful and brilliant that they are, even in the toughest circumstances. And so my name is Andre Cohen. Thank you for working with us through this part, and we'll hit some of those external assets in just a minute.